from behind.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen.
There we go, John, down from Junkrat.
Another evening of Ben Drowned. Good to have y'all here. Just getting set up. See if the site is back up yet. Not quite yet.
Yeah, I'm gonna be done for the night. It's 9 o'clock. Hey, good job. That turret up there, your turret up there. Well, yeah, you may have killed Diva, but your turret murdered everything else. Yay, spite. Oh, wow. Plus an extra. I got my career best of Mercy. In damage dealt. Okay, guys, have a good night. I'll talk to y'all later.
Just gonna do that there. There we go. People coming in already. Good, good. Hope you've all had a lovely afternoon, lovely evening. We are once again keeping an eye on Ben Drowned and seeing what new details have come out of it. For the last couple days, there have been a few developments with the site. Today, it's been randomly popping on and offline. I'm not sure if people are just accessing it too much, but it does appear that it is up at this time. Let's see if the rest of it is running real quick. Just gonna mute that tab there for a moment. Yeah, I saw your thing, Evan. I saw your message. And I did hear. Looks like it might still be down, or it's just it's going directly to the Moon Children page, or the sign-in page now. There's nothing else up on it. So yeah, after the Rogue went and posted the most recent song, it went down, and it's been like this since. It was up briefly, but then went down again with a bunch of information missing from what I heard. I was out at the time. I unfortunately did not get to see this, but for anyone who wants more information on this, of course, I would recommend going to the Discord channel. All the information there on the Bomber's Drive is, of course, very helpful. Very good to see. So we're going to just be on here for a bit tonight. We've got the auto refresh up for the Ben Drowned page. Maybe we'll see something. If we don't, we, of course, have the option, of course, to do some reading tonight. But for now, we're just going to keep an eye on this for about 10 minutes or so and see how things are going on. A few things interesting have happened today, of course. If you've been paying attention to Twitter and a bunch of things, there was the Marina Joyce incident, or the Marina Joyce thing going on, where people were thinking that a young lady who is a YouTuber apparently being heavily abused by her boyfriend, from what it sounds like, may have been in trouble. The police apparently went there and did not find anything. This was, of course, brought to light after a fan meetup was scheduled for tomorrow morning at 6:30 a.m. I'm not sure the time zone, but it's in what's it called, in England. So it was a little suspect, because who does a fan meetup at 6:30 in the morning, really? Kind of good to see you all here tonight. Hello, Dan Roy, Gun Lovers, Evan Sleegar, Sasha, Sailor Pluto, Ego, all of you. It's good to see you tonight. We're just getting set up here and getting ready for whatever may come, if anything does come tonight. We're just going to be keeping our eyes open and talking about some things going on, just internet and the ARG community as well. Other things that have happened tonight, of course, I'm up here. Where did it go? Roanshire, if anyone's been following that. The individual Roanshire Public Archive, he's known more as Archie to the rest of us, apparently has been found out by whoever has been looking for him. He may be in trouble at this time. We're waiting for, of course, the paramilitary individual to return to us. If he does, it would be very good, of course, but if he doesn't, then there's not much we can do, unfortunately. So we're just keeping our eyes open tonight and seeing what we can see in the stream. If nothing comes up in the next 5-10 minutes, while Ben knows that my attention is on him right now, of course I'm going to do some reading while leaving this up, just as something to do. Hope everyone's had a nice day. Watched the new episode of Steven Universe. Very well done. Loved the Evangelion reference at the end of it, with the pizza slices and the horizon. That was hilarious. Also watched the new SmackDown. They did a very good job with that. I wasn't expecting Dolph Ziggler to be the #1 contender to go against Dean Ambrose, but hey, you know what? Why not? It's it's a step in a different direction. Sure. So it's been a little bit interesting there on those fronts. Just if anyone has any information they'd like to pass forward, be most appreciated. Yes, I saw that earlier. Sam's shown me the what was it? The reveal of the leaders for the Pokemon Go.
They're so cute.
The Pokemon Go leadership reveal. Just how essentially Spark is a giant goof, and that's my leader, and he's perfect. Yes, there was a new episode, Dan Roy, of Steven Universe. If you haven't seen it yet, it's Kiki's pizza delivery service today. Was very, very fun, very, very excellent, very awesome. I enjoyed it a great deal. You're so far behind in Steven Universe. Well, it's a good time to catch up because we're currently undergoing what's it called, the Steven Nuke, or the Summer Adventures, where it's not just a week, it's several weeks of episodes. All of them so far have sort of had the theme of Steven stepping up and being more of a leader, which is actually kind of interesting to see. I've been enjoying it. Just gonna excuse me. Yeah. Yeah. Still nothing from Ben yet, unfortunately. Still just waiting and watching kind of thing. Yeah, it's good to hear that that young lady is at least in good hands. Why a 6:30 in the morning meetup was set up didn't make any sense, really. People are still looking into what that was all about, I guess. Been playing Overwatch today. I know you guys have been watching me and seeing the streams and everything. Had a lot of fun playing that. God, it's a great game. Calm Susar Stevie needs to be a thing. That's an even. Yes. Yes, Evan. Yes, that'd be perfect. Tell us your idea about the call-out show. Yeah, just a real simple idea I had after the other night, which unfortunately for the stream here turned into a bit of a disaster. For anyone who missed it, we had the Camdrome call-out the other night, where a number of people came on live to join me in calling out Camdrome. We all had masks on and such. It seemed like a good idea at the time, sort of thing. Unfortunately, because of how many people suddenly got involved with it, we had like 15 people all live Camdroming, or sorry, all all live with their webcams on through Skype. Skype has always given me issues. Skype always eats up a lot of resources, I've noticed, with a computer. I really think it's, completely honest, a piece of shit program. I would literally use anything other than Skype, simply because Skype uses up so much fucking memory that it's absolutely ridiculous. Um, but yeah, we had like 15 people on it. It caused the stream just to absolutely and completely lag while we're going on. If anyone hasn't seen it, it is in the archive on the channel, of course. And I actually do a face reveal on that when I remove my mask, and it was kind of fun. It was kind of nice, you know. Thought everyone deserved a little bit of a reward. Yeah. No, Skype eats up a lot of resources though. That's my beef with it, and I fucking hate it. So yeah, the idea was, if I were to use maybe a different program, or um, what's it called? Yeah, a different program, or a or just had fewer people in general, like, you know, maybe one or two people on, and it could almost be a bit of an interview show, where we talk to other people within um, the ARG community, or other people who are connected to ARGs, or maybe even, you know, people who are, like, you know, big names in this spooky spook world that we have here set up online. It could be a lot of fun. I think it'd be a great idea just to have a bit of a almost a bit of a chat or a talk show about this sort of thing. It'd be a good deal of fun. I'd love to have people on and talk to them about the games they're involved with, or, you know, what they do, sort of thing, their takes, their interpretations, their theories. I could have a little sets of, what's it, like, questions, or, like, you know, I can pose during two people kind of thing. It could be fun. It could be a lot of fun. Google Hangout may be a good option for this sort of thing. I will definitely look into that. I'm going to do some research before actually going forward with this, because there's I don't want, like, you know, the first thing to be a goddamn mess like it was before, unfortunately. So we'll do it proper when we have time. Excuse me. Oh, jeez, yawn. So yeah, not getting anything from Camdrum yet. We're gonna let the stream time hit 15 minutes, and from there I'm going to go on and start with a reading tonight. We've still got more stories from my Call of Cthulhu and other weird stories things. If you recall, the other night we read Cool Air, a personal favorite of mine. So I'm gonna take a flick through here and find something worth reading. Let's see what we have. Lovely Sammy here. Good news to everyone as well. I may have a job. Well, I don't may. I have training for a job starting up this weekend. So I'm going to be working for Amazon, which is decent, I suppose. So I'm thinking, let's see what we got here. What do we have to read? I sort of ate them all. I'm sorry, I didn't know if you wanted any. There's another pack in the freezer. Cook them. I'll cook them up and I'll stick one in. Deal with it. I'm doing it. Deal with it. I'm doing it. Let's see. What would be good here? What's not too long that I could read? Many of these are very long, unfortunately. So how about we go with
Don't cook up a breadstick. I may be coming home early tomorrow.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I'm quite happy that I finally have a goddamn job. Unfortunately means, you know, there might be fewer videos out of me for a little bit while I get set up and everything.
What, like 4 days on, 3 days off?
Yeah, it is.
Okay.
That's right. It's a 4 day on, 3 day off kind of shift. 10-hour work days. But yeah.
I'll start. Oh, Scott, I think I'm gonna hunt down a crock pot cookbook.
Yeah, we have a couple of magazines and books there right next to the knife rack that have crockpot stuff all in them, so that's something worth looking at. Nothing has happened today, unfortunately. Nothing's happened tonight yet, guys. We're still just waiting to see if anything's going to come up here, but nothing so far is doing. I'm thinking the Hound might be a good story for tonight. The Hound is a good one. Let me just locate it maybe here. Ben, if you're around, we're watching you. I'd like to read Herbert West, The Reanimator at some point. But that's really a super long one. You know, I think we're going to do the Hound tonight. It's a good one. It's another really good one I enjoy, so I'm going to just mark that page here. Gotta put a receipt in the book there just so we know something. Give it a couple more minutes here, see if anything comes up. And I'm just going to turn the light on so I can see what I'm reading. Always helpful to be able to see what the fuck I'm doing. Yeah, the site is at least stable now. That's definitely a good thing. Unfortunately, it's not doing anything. It could be that we're in a... Could that be that we're in a slight bit of a down period right now? Because even after what happened earlier today, there wasn't much forward motion with anything going on. What's it called? There wasn't much forward motion when it came to the story or any progress of what was going on. So let's see here. Let's see what we got here. Yeah, nothing going on yet. Been playing Pokemon Go for a bit. Been playing it a lot lately. There's a what's it called? A Dratini nest at the lake near my house. So it was kind of nice the other day. I went over there and I wandered around for a few hours and just caught a bunch. Dratini's always one of those Pokemon that pissed me off. I get that, you know, okay, Magikarp evolves into Gyarados. I get that. I get that it's an old story. It's a classic folklore legend from Japan. But then what is the deal with Dragonair to Dragonite? What the fuck is that, honestly? It looks like shit. Like, you know, kind of small and childy, then something elegant, and then something goofy looking. Well, maybe we'll be lucky and we'll get a new phase out of this in the next week or so. You can't find your book?
Oh, I swear to God I own it because I know what happens in it.
Sam may have misplaced a book of hers.
But I don't know if I own it because I don't remember seeing it.
Okay, I'm going to start reading here because nothing is appearing to happen here tonight.
I apologize for the clacking in the background.
Yeah, Sam apologizes for the clacking. She's just going to do some, she's just hunting down a copy of her book that she can stick on her Kindle. And I'm just going to do this here. Okay, so, here we go. The Hound by H.P. Lovecraft. In my tortured ears there are sounds unceasingly, a nightmare whirring and flapping, and a faint, distant baying, as if some gigantic hound. It is not a dream. It is not, I fear, even madness, for too much has already happened to give me these merciful doubts. St. John is a mangled corpse. I alone know why, and such is my knowledge that I am about to blow out my brains for fear I shall be mangled in the same way. Down unlit and illuminable corridors of eldritch fantasy sweeps the black, shapeless nemesis that drives me to self-annihilation. May heaven forgive the folly and morbidity which has led us both to such a monstrous fate. Wearied with the commonplaces of a prosaic world, where even the joys of romance and adventure soon go stale, St. John and I had followed enthusiastically every aesthetic and intellectual movement which promised respite from our devastating ennui. The enigmas of the symbolists and the ecstasies of the pre-Raphaelites all were ours in our time. But each new mood was drained too soon of its diverting novelty and appeal. Only the somber philosophy of the decadence could hold us, and this we found potent only by increasing gradually the depth and diabolism of our penetrations. Baudelaire and Huysmans were soon exhausted of thrills, till finally there remained for us only the more direct stimuli of unnatural personal experiences and adventure. It was this frightful emotional need, which led us eventually to that detestable course, which even in my present fear I mention with shame and timidity, that hideous extremity of human outrage, the abhorred practice of grave robbing. I cannot reveal the details of our shocking expeditions, or catalogue even partly the worst of our trophies adorning the nameless museum we prepared in the great stone house where we jointly dwelt, alone and servantless. Our museum was a blasphemous, unthinkable place, where with the satanic taste of necrotic virtuosi we had assembled a universe of terror and decay to excite our jaded sensibilities. It was a secret room, far, far underground, where huge winged daemons carved of basalt and onyx vomited from wide grinning mouths, weird green and orange lights, and hidden pneumatic pipes ruffled into kaleidoscopic dances of death the lines of red charl things, hand in hand woven in voluminous black hangings. Through these pipes came at will the odors our moods most craved, sometimes the scent of pale funeral lilies, sometimes the narcotic incense of imagined eastern shrines and of the kingly dead, and sometimes, how I shuddered to recall it, the frightful, soul-upheaving stenches of the uncovered grave. Around the walls of this repellent chamber were cases of antique mummies, alternating with comely, lifelike bodies, perfectly stuffed and cured by the taxidermist's art, and with the headstones snatched from the oldest graveyards of the world. Niches here and there contained skulls of all shapes and heads preserved in various stages of dissolution. There one might find the rotting bald pates of famous noblemen, and the fresh and radiant golden heads of new buried children. Statues and paintings there were all of fiendish subjects, and some executed by St. John and myself. A locked portfolio, bound in tanned human skin, held certain unknown and unnameable drawings which was rumored Goya had perpetrated but dared not acknowledge. There were nauseating musical instruments, stringed, brass, woodwind, on which St. John and I sometimes produced dissonance of exquisite morbidity and cacodemoniacal ghastliness, while in a multitude of inlaid ebony cabinets reposed the most incredible and unimaginable variety of tomb loot ever assembled by human madness and perversity. It is this loot in particular that I must not speak. Thank God I had the courage to destroy it long before I thought about destroying myself. The predatory excursions on which we collected our unmentionable treasures were always artistically memorable events. We were no vulgar ghouls, but worked only under certain conditions of mood, landscape, environment, weather, season, and moonlight. These pastimes were given to us most exquisite forms of aesthetic These pastimes were to give us a most exquisite form of aesthetic expression, and we gave their details a fastidious technical care. An inappropriate hour, a jarring lighting effect, or a clumsy manipulation of damp sod would almost totally destroy for us that ecstatic titillation which followed our exhumation of ominous, grinning secrets of the earth. Our quest for novel scenes and piquant conditions were feverish and insatiate. St. John was always the leader, and it was he it was who led the way at last to that mocking and accursed spot which brought our hideous and inevitable doom. Pardon me, a bit of water here. By what malign fatality were we lured to that terrible Holland churchyard? I think it was the dark rumor and legendary, the tales of one buried for 5 centuries, who had himself been a ghoul in his time, and had stolen a potent thing from a mighty sepulchre. I can recall the scene in these final moments, the pale autumnal moon over the graves casting long horrible shadows, the grotesque trees drooping sullenly to meet the neglected grass, and the crumbling slabs, the vast legions of strangely colossal bats that flew against the moon, the antique ivied church pointing that huge spectral finger at the livid sky, the phosphorescent insects that danced like death fires under the yews in a distant corner, the odors of mold, vegetation, and less explicable things that mingled feebly with the night wind from over the far swamps and seas, and worst of all, the faint, deep-toned baying of some gigantic hound which we could neither see nor definitely place. As we heard this suggestion of baying, we shuddered, remembering the tales of the peasantry, for he whom we had sought had centuries before been found in this self-same spot, torn and mangled by the claws and teeth of some unspeakable beast. I hope the Moon Children are listening. I remember how we delved into this ghoul's grave with our spades, and how we thrilled at the picture of ourselves, the grave, the pale watching moon, the horrible shadows, the grotesque trees, the titanic bats, the antique church, the dancing death fires, the sickening odors, the gently moaning night wind, and the strange half-heard directionless baying of whose objective existence we could scarcely be sure of. Then we struck a substance harder than the damp mold, and beheld a rotting oblong box, crusted with mineral deposits from the long undisturbed ground. It was incredibly tough and thick, but so old that when we finally pried it open and feasted our eyes on what it held. Much, amazingly much, was left of the object, despite the lapse of 500 years. The skeleton, though crushed in place by jaws of the thing that had killed it, held together with a surprising firmness, and we gloated over the clean white skull, and its long firm teeth, and its eyeless sockets that once had glowed with a charnel fever like our own. In the coffin lied an amulet of curious and exotic design, which had apparently been worn around the sleeper's neck. It was the oddly conventionalized figure of a crouching winged hound, or sphinx, with a fashion from a small piece of green jade. Oh, hang on. Read this wrong, sorry. It was the oddly conventionalized figure of a crouching winged hound, or sphinx, with a semi-canine face, and was exquisitely carved in antique oriental fashion from a small piece of green jade. The expression on its features was repellent in the extreme, savoring at once death, bestiality, and malevolence. Around the base was an inscription in characters which neither I nor St. John could identify, and on the bottom, like a maker's seal, was graven a grotesque and formidable skull. Immediately upon beholding this amulet, we knew we must possess it, and that this treasure alone was our logical pelf from the centuried grave. Even had its outlines been unfamiliar, we would have desired it. But as we looked more closely at what we saw, but as we looked more closely, we saw that it was not unwholly familiar. Alien it indeed was to all art and literature, which sane and balanced readers know, but we recognized it as a thing hinted from the forbidden Necronomicon of the mad Arab Abdul al-Hazred, the ghastly soul symbol of all corpse-eating cults of inaccessible Lang in Central Asia. All too well did we trace the sinister lineaments described by the old Arab demonologists. Lineaments, he wrote, drawn from some obscure supernatural manifestation of the souls who vexed and gnawed at the dead. Seizing the green jade object, we gave a last glance up at the bleach and carven-eyed face of its owner, and closed up the grave as we found it. As we hastened from that abhorred spot, the amulet stolen in St. John's pocket, we thought we saw the bats descend in a body to the earth that we had so lately rifled, as if seeking for some cursed and unholy nourishment. But the autumn moon shone weak and pale, and we could not be sure. So, too, as we sailed the next day from Holland to our home, we thought we had heard the faint, distant baying of some gigantic hound in the background, but the autumn wind moaned sad and wan, and we could not be sure. Part 2. Less than a week after our return to England, strange things began to happen. We lived as recluses, devoid of friends, alone and without servants, in a few rooms of an ancient manor house on a bleak and unfrequented moor, so that our doors were seldom disturbed by the knock of visitors. Now, however, we were troubled by what seemed to be frequent fumblings in the night, not only around the doors, but around the windows also, upper as well as lower. Once we fancied that a large opaque body darkened the library window when the moon was shining against it, and another time we thought we heard a whirring or flapping sound not too far off. On each occasion's investigation we revealed nothing, and we began to ascribe the occurrences to imagination alone, that same curiously disturbed imaginations which still pronged in our ears the faint, far baying we thought we had heard in the Holland churchyard. The jade amulet now reposed in a niche in our museum, and sometimes we burned strangely scented candles before it. We read much in Ahasred's Necronomicon about its properties, and about the relation of ghoul souls to the objects that it symbolized, and we were disturbed by what we read. Then terror came. On the night of September 24th, 19 year removed, I heard a knock at my chamber door. Fancying it St. John, I bade the knocker enter, but was only answered by a shrill laugh. Ben? There was no one in the corridor. When I aroused St. John from his sleep, he professed entire ignorance of the event, and I became worried, and became as worried as I. It was that night that the faint, distant baying over the moor came to us, a certain and dreaded reality. 4 days later, whilst we were both in the hidden museum, there came a low, cautious scratching at the single door which led to the secret library staircase. Our alarm was now divided. For beside our great fear of the unknown, we had always entertained a dread that our grisly collection might be discovered. Extinguishing all lights, we proceeded to the door and threw it open suddenly, whereupon we felt an unaccountable rush of air, and heard, as if receding far away, a queer combination of rustling, tittering, and articulate chatter. Whether we were mad, dreaming in our senses, we did not try to determine. We only realized with the blackest of apprehensions that the apparently disembodied chatter was beyond a doubt in the Dutch language. After that we lived in growing horror and fascination. Mostly we held to the theory that we were jointly going mad for our life of unnatural excitements. But sometimes it pleased us more to dramatize ourselves as the victims of some creeping and appalling doom. Bizarre manifestations were now too frequent to count. Our lonely house was seemingly alive with the presence of some malign being whose nature we could not guess, and every night that demonic baying rolled over the windswept moor, always louder and louder. On October 29th, we found in the soft earth underneath the library window a series of footprints utterly impossible to describe. They were as baffling as the hordes of great bats which haunted the old manor house in unprecedented increasing numbers. The horror reached its culmination on November 18th when St. John, walking home after dark from the distant railways, was seized by some frightful carnivorous thing and torn to ribbons. His screams had reached the house, and I had hastened to the terrible scene in time to hear a whir of wings and see a vague black cloud thing silhouetted against the rising moon. My friend was dying when I spoke to him, and he could not answer coherently. All he could do was whisper, "The amulet. That damned thing." And then he collapsed, an inert mass of mangled flesh. I buried him the next midnight in one of our neglected gardens, and mumbled over his body one of the devilish rituals that he had loved in life. And as I pronounced the last demonic sentence, I heard afar on the moor the faint baying of some gigantic hound. The moon was up, but I dared not look at it, and when I saw on the dimly lit moor a wide nebulous shadow sweeping from mound to mound, I shut my eyes and threw myself face down upon the ground. When I arose trembling, I know not how much later, I staggered into the house and made shocking obeisances before the enshrined amulet of green jade. Being now afraid to live alone in the ancient house on the moor, I departed the next day for London, taking with me the amulet after I had destroyed by fire and burial the rest of the impious collection of the museum. But after 3 nights, I heard the baying again, and before the week was over I felt strange eyes upon me whenever it was dark. One evening I strolled on Victoria Embankment for some needed air. I saw a black shape obscure one of the reflections in the lamp by the water. A wind stronger than the night wind rushed by, and I knew what had befallen John would soon befall me. The next day I carefully wrapped the green jade amulet and sailed for Holland. What mercy I might gain by returning the thing to its silent, sleeping owner I knew not, but I felt that I must at least try, by any conceivable logic, any step that might help. What the hound was and why it pursued me were questions still vague, but I had first heard the baying in that ancient churchyard, and every subsequent event, including St. John's dying whisper, had served to connect the curse with the stealing of the amulet. Accordingly, I sank into the nethermost abysses of despair when, at an inn in Rotterdam, I discovered that thieves had despoiled me of my sole means of salvation. The baying was loud that evening, and in the morning I read of a nameless deed in the vilest quarter of the city. The rabble were in terror, for upon an evil tenement had fallen a red death beyond the foulest perceived crimes of the neighborhood. In a squalid thieves' den, an entire family had been torn to shreds by an unknown thing which left no trace, and those around had heard all night the unusual clamor of drunken voices, a faint, deep, insistent note of a giant hound. So at last, I stood again in that unwholesome churchyard where a pale winter moon cast hideous shadows, and leafless trees drooped sullenly to meet the withered frosty grass and cracked slabs, and the ivied church pointing a jeering finger at the unfriendly sky, and the night wind howled maniacally from over the frozen swamps and seas. The baying was very faint now, and it ceased altogether as I approached the ancient grave I had once violated and frightened away an abnormally large horde of bats which had been hovering curiously around it. I know not why I went thither, unless to pray or give her out insane pleas and apologies to the calm white thing that lie within, but whatever my reason, I attacked the half-frozen sod with a desperation partly mine and partly that of a dominating will outside myself. Excavation was much easier than I expected, though at one point I encountered a queer interruption when a lean vulture darted down out of the sky and pecked frantically at the grave earth, until I killed it with a blow of my spade. Finally I reached the rotting oblong box and removed that damp nitrous cover. This is the last rational act that I ever performed. For crouched within that centuried coffin, embraced by a close packet nightmare routine of huge sinewy sleeping bats, was the bony thing that my friend and I had robbed, not clean and placid as we had seen it, but covered with caked blood and shreds of alien flesh and hair, and leering sentiently at me with phosphorescent sockets and sharp ensanguinated fangs, yawning twistedly in mockery at my inevitable doom. And when it gave from those grinning jaws a deep sardonic bay, as if that of some gigantic hound, and I saw that it held in its gory, filthy claw the lost and fateful amulet of green jade, I merely screamed and ran away idiotically, my screams soon dissolving into peals of hysterical laughter. Madness rides the star wind, claws and teeth sharpened on centuries of corpses, dripping death astride a bacchanal of bats from night-black ruins of buried temples of Belial. Now, as the baying of that dead, fleshless monstrosity grows louder and louder, and the stealthy whirring and flapping of those accursed web wings circle closer and closer, I shall seek with my revolver the oblivion which is my only refuge from the unnamed and unnameable. That was The Hounds by H.P. Lovecraft, and I hope you all enjoyed it. It's quite the story there. It's another one that I really like. There's a number of them in there that I've really enjoyed. Unfortunately, it looks like we're not going to be getting any reaction from Ben tonight. He's being rather obstinate and not coming out to play, it seems. So I think at this time I am going to I think I am going to stop the stream, as there's no direction to go and Ben is not making this fun tonight. There's no activity. So I want to thank everyone for joining me tonight. It's been lovely having you all here. You're a wonderful audience. You're wonderful listeners. You're fantastic people to have around. I want to thank you all very much. There will be another stream, if not tomorrow, then the day after, for Ben Drowned. There will be another Overwatch stream probably tomorrow on. I do have to go pick up some steel-toed shoes, however, for my new job, so there might be a little bit of delay in there when that goes down as well. So I want to thank everyone for joining me tonight. It's been lovely having you all here. It's a shame that Ben didn't show up or do anything or say anything, but hey, you know what? You can't win every night. So thank you again for joining me, my Goonies. Thank you for joining me for another day of Ben Drowned. And don't forget, Goonies never say die.